Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz. Welcome to Communications from Home, my evening show, which is weekly, right here at Star Nations Organization's main fan page at Facebook. Tonight is Tuesday, July 9th. I've got to move my camera over. Hang on just a minute. Oh, there we go. A little bit better. Tonight in Toma, Wisconsin, where I live, oh my goodness, we're having thunderstorms. It's not really, really hard thunderstorms, but it is raining. And I was going to do a little live stream just beforehand, just so you guys could listen to the rain with me. Yeah, it's really nice. It really is. And so it's kind of a, I'm still here. I don't know if you heard my voice or not. I don't know. Good thoughts coming this way that the internet stays, okay? Yeah, with the storm the way it is. Well, and the thing is that the internet's fine. It's the power, it's the electricity. So tonight's topic is all about, are you too much or not enough? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that before we launch into any of the specifics and why we even came to this topic, okay? But before I begin, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here with me this evening. I know that in the summertime, we have so much we can be doing outside and with our families and all in that whole thing, right? And so whatever time that you take out of your schedule to spend time with us here at Star Nations for any one of our live stream shows, I do appreciate it. I really do. Because our shows are really for you, right? If we didn't have you as an audience, we wouldn't need to be having live stream shows. So we really do appreciate it. And we're hopeful is a good word, that the topics that we bring to you in each one of the shows is helpful and insightful and resonates with you, maybe not in the entirety, but even if it's just one aspect, right? And so for my show, for Communications from Home, I've been doing this show now for almost 2 years. Can you believe that? Live stream. It's amazing. It's amazing. This show started out as an experiment because I wanted to learn about our partners at Be Live TV who allow us to do these kind of cool interviews and shows through their app. And we're just now heading into a time with Be Live where they have upgraded our tools. And so tonight I'm coming to you from our old studio, not the new studio, which all the controls and all of that look very, very familiar. The new studio is still kind of uncomfortable because I don't know where everything is at yet and how everything works. So and why am I even mentioning that? It's because way back when we started here at Star Nations, the internet radio shows with Blog Talk Radio back in 2013. We only had a few shows, a handful of shows, because we didn't have the show hosts that were willing to share their gifts with everyone. It was difficult. It was difficult for them to come to use their voice in that way. And so fast forward to 2016. Yeah, I think it was 2016. September of 2016. We began using Be Live TV as live stream shows. In October of 2016 is when we made the conversion over to live stream from internet radio. And we went through the same growing pains with our show hosts and being reluctant to be in front of the camera. They were more than willing to share their information and their wisdom with everybody, their experience. but to do it in front of a camera. And so we took the whole month of September, to practice and to help each other, right? And and now today, the live stream show hosts that we have, full of self-confidence, and they're able, when they're self-confident in that way, they can actually express themselves in their fullness, right? Yeah. And so that's part of the topic for tonight. Before I get much further down the road, though, I'm going to use my phone, and we're using the word sprinkle or spread the seed, to seed the light of this live stream to a couple of different places. And it would be nice if you'd like it too. Let's see. Okay, here we are. I'm going to share it over to, see, I said the S word. I've been doing this for 2 years. It's a bad habit to break. It's a bad habit to break, to use that S word. All right, so I'm going to share it over to my news feed, my timeline. And just so that my friends know, I'm live streaming. And asking them to please come out and play. There we go. We'll post that. And I don't know if Stephanie's in the house or not. I'm going to sprinkle it over to the Star Nations Radio Network closed group, just in case. I don't remember if Stephanie was going to be in the house or not. So we're just going to do that. Just so the peeps, it's a gentle reminder for the peeps. There we go. And then ask him to come out to play. There we go. And there we go. Oh, see, Stephanie's going, seeding. All right. I already did the network, just so you know. That's a very Wisconsin term, just so you know. All right. Hey, Rob Kendall's here. Hello, Rob. Good to have you here. Good to see you. And he's using the word spritz. He's spritzing the live stream over to a couple of different places. Right? Thank you, Rob, for doing that. And Rob says, I'm already spritzed the broadcast. It beats the word, the letter S word. I know it does, doesn't it? But it already starts with an S. It's all these S words. Thank you, Stephanie. She says she's seeding. And Jocelyn said that she shared. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Yeah, starting out the show with explaining kind of our history, right? As Star Nations shows. And I was, how do I even phrase this? Because tonight's topic would have normally been the magazine, Star Nations magazine, because we're publishing tomorrow. Generally, I would do a whole show about the backstory to this issue, right? And I just took it for granted. I just thought, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I kept hearing that phrase, the phrase of about being too much or not enough. Are you too? That you're too much. You're just too much. You're so sensitive. Why are you so sensitive? Or that you're not enough. It's like that you live your life in your head. You're such a brainiac. You're such a nerd. That the Mr. Spot kind of syndrome, not in touch with your emotions. And that's just one piece, right? Because I know that phrase, or those two phrases, come around quite a bit, and you could put it in any part of your life practically, right? And so when I heard this phrase over and over and over again, and so I finally stopped and paused for a minute and was talking to my team. I said, so what is this phrase that you keep repeating to me over and over and over again? I hear it, but I don't understand what you want me to do with it. And it was like, this is your show topic. My show topic? I thought we were doing the magazine. It was like, no, not Tuesday. Tuesday is all about this. And we can always do a special show for the magazine. Okay. So as I was considering that phrase, and I wrote it out several times, and I didn't type it out on the computer. I literally wrote it out longhand to get the feeling, to get the emotion with it, right? And I remember reflecting back on our early days here for the shows and how those early show hosts were quite nervous about presenting their information in public because many of their families didn't know how deep their belief was in spirit, not religion, but in spirit. And so they were kind of coming out of the spiritual closet, very publicly. And I remember talking to a few of them about their childhood, and what it was like as a sensitive child to be told, stop, your imagination is running wild, stop daydreaming. Why do you have to be so sensitive? Why do you always have to make it about you? That's another one. And usually it's because if you were a sensitive child or an empath and didn't realize that that's what was the problem, you were taking on everybody else's emotions, even as a little one. And so, you're crying, you're sad, you're happy, you're mad. And, usually the people around you, it was kind of hard to keep up with you, but it was their emotions that you were displaying. And so anyway, our show hosts in those early days, expressing their wisdom. And now, when I take a look at those show hosts who are still with us, and we switched over to be live, we went through another phase or another aspect of that because we were in front of a camera. And some of the hosts, including myself, was going through those same feelings. You're too much, you're not enough. Yeah. And so trying to be kind to ourselves and kind to each other and supporting each other as we began this journey with live stream, right? Because we're really out there kind of exposed in a way, the light is definitely shining very brightly on the stage, and we're right in the middle of it, sharing with all of you. And then all of a sudden, one day, because I watch 98% of the shows. There's a few times where I'm not in the live chat. And one day, I was watching one of the shows, and I saw the host comfortable, self-confident, speaking with their heart, right? And I realized in that moment that the show hosts were finding their rhythm, their place in all of this, right? And they were no longer considering themselves too much or not enough. They were just right. They were just right. Have you ever had that feeling in your life? Well, let's ask that in two questions. One, and I'm going to be guessing that the answer to this first question is that, have you ever been told you're too sensitive or you're too much of anything, or not enough of something? Okay. Has that ever been expressed to you? and you don't have to tell us at what age, but for yourself, try to go back to the earliest memory of that, because that's going to help. That's going to help kind of open and settle and talk about this, right? To talk it out. Yeah. hmm Yeah. Rob's saying yes, both, both. Yeah. And you don't have to tell me the age, Rob, but was it at a young age? And Andrea's saying hello. I was often told I was too sensitive. Yeah. And Stephanie's saying both, pretty much as long as I can remember. Yeah. And Jocelyn's saying, yep, both. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how we do that to ourselves and to each other, right? Because the first time you hear that phrase, either one of them, especially when you're a child, it goes right to your heart, doesn't it? It goes right to your heart because that may be the first time that you really felt judged. That you're something less than perfect. Because up until that point, usually we're pretty joyful, we're playful, you know, yeah. Rob's saying, it really doesn't matter which, as long as the person being told realizes they're not adequate. That's true. That's absolutely true. And Rob, he's also saying, from my earliest memories right up to the last weekend. Aw. Aw. Okay. And so when, in my world anyway, when I began my journey, knowing I was spirit, right? This spiritual journey here on earth. And remembering when I was first told that. And mine was usually, you're too much. I was usually too much. Yeah. That's a lot of inner child work, healing work to be done. To the point where either it doesn't get said to you anymore because you're not reflecting it for anybody anymore, that it's something that is been healed and released, and so it's no longer residing in your energy field, right? Or you've healed enough to the point and released enough to the point that when it is said to you, it's no longer a trigger. It no longer brings up those feelings of inadequacy or anger or hurt, right? It's when we still have those, even the tinges of it, means that we still have some healing around it. And that's okay. That's all right. That's just Spirit's way of showing us that you've done a lot, you've come a long way, but you still have this one piece that you have to deal with, right? Yeah. Andrea says, sometimes people would say that in order to avoid looking at their own bad behavior. That's true. That's what I meant about being the mirror. Because we all play a part, right? A role for somebody. We all do. And so sometimes, and you're right, Andrea, sometimes we're mirroring something to them, right? And because there's something about themselves that is coming to the light, floating to the surface. Yeah, and I don't know. In the description for the show, I said something about a different way of looking at emotional intelligence, EQ. And it's still, I remember when I first heard the phrase, and I even read one book on it. It was that was a few years ago, a while ago. and it was touted as the new thing, right? Do you remember that? Yeah, emotional intelligence. And so after my afternoon live stream show, I was getting ready to work on the magazine again, and it kept nagging at me. I kept nagging at me. What's the definition of emotional intelligence, right? And so I just looked it up. And it says that emotional intelligence refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. So I had to sit with there for a moment with that one. I can see managing my own emotions intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and maybe even physically. But how do you manage someone else's emotions, right? And so it goes on to say, is emotional intelligence is generally said to include at least 3 skills: emotional awareness, or the ability to identify and name one's own emotions, the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving, and the ability to manage emotions, which includes both regulating one's own emotions when necessary and helping others to do the same. Huh. So, and I can remember even the first time I read one book on it. It's like I'm thinking, what's the difference between that and an empath that knows their gifts and has been learning how to use that gift and to master it, to really shine it up in the application, right? What's the difference between those two? And in my mind, in my heart, I don't. I see that the EQ, the way that they have it written in their description, really does come from a psychological, scientific kind of point of view. Which I think when that book came out, when the theory came out, it was really needed. It was really needed to reach um, a larger portion of the population that would be able to really take in that information in that way, right? And those of us that have been walking the life as an empath and then applying it to our spirit, in our spiritual life, right? Um, those of us that probably felt like we were just kind of 1 or 2 steps out of sync with everybody else most of our lives, that we were already embracing that emotional intelligence in a way that we found it as a gift, a spiritual gift that we came in with, right? Yeah. But I still see it as I see it more of a balance now. I can see a fuller picture of that. The first time I read it, I thought, "Oh my gosh, this has really come from the science end of things." And I'm a psych major. That's what my undergrad degree was in. And so, I could recognize the jargon and I could recognize the feeling around it. That's probably why I went a little bit backed away from it because it reminded me too much of my college years. But see, the way I feel today is that when we look at that information, we can, those of us that are awake and aware, we can look at it from a more expanded perspective, and we can apply the things that we've learned about empathy and being an empath and being a sensitive to that, right? And so it helps us to understand, even at a deeper way, our gift. So when somebody tells you that you're too sensitive, it's like, yeah, I am. I'm using all of my tools, and one of my tools is to pick up other people's emotions and feeling them and maybe even helping them to release them or to understand them. It's a gift, right? So are we really too much or too sensitive? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not in this sense, anyway. Because I'm sure that there's others out there with personalities that kind of go way out there, with their personality. Um, yeah, but I think it's another way of looking at this and looking at it from a more inclusive and expanded version of this, right? All right. Rob is saying refereeing sports is an example of doing that. It's no easy task. It's right. It's not. It's not, especially when it's not. How do I want to say this? When it's not in your wheelhouse, when it's not in your toolbox, right? Because I believe that everybody came in knowing how to feel and sense empathy, to be empathic. It's on a continuum, of course, but I think that we all came in with it. And there's those of us who came in with a larger dose. And it's part of our toolkit. It's part of that expresses our soul. Right? And you're right, it is tough. Especially, and we've had this discussion. I don't know how many different ways we've talked about being an empath, but when you don't realize that you have that as a gift, and you see it as a curse rather than a gift, and because you feel everybody's emotions and you don't know what to do with it, it's just overwhelming, and it's not until you begin to work with it and to understand that aspect of yourself and to begin to master that gift, right? That it no longer feels overwhelming. But many times we turn to it to understand a situation or to read a room, right? And so, it's yeah. We get to the point where we're comfortable with it. Jocelyn's saying some people don't understand, though. No, they don't. They don't. Now, when you say some people who don't understand, are you talking about the person who is the sensitive or the empath, or the other person who is saying you're too sensitive? Which one are you referring to, Jocelyn, that don't understand? Hey, Madonna. Yay. Hello, Madonna. Oh, my goodness. I usually have your book sitting right here so I can show it. But Madonna DePaulo, she is one of our authors here at Star Nations Publishing. Her book, The Sound Weavers. And yeah, I'm so glad to see you here, Madonna. Thank you for being here, coming in to share the time with us, because I know you're a busy woman too. Okay, so Jocelyn is saying the other person. That's true. They don't understand. They don't understand. And depending on the situation and what's going on, it could be a teachable moment. It could be a teachable moment, depending on who they are and what the circumstances are, right? Because as an empath, you can say that, I understand that you feel blah, blah, blah. And they might not have even verbalized it. And they're looking at it, it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, how do you know that? It's like, because I can feel it. I can feel it. And depending on who they are, you can help them open up a little bit. You can be a little helpful in that way to help them to express it as in a healthy way. At least to let them know that somebody knows what they're feeling. And the suggestion is, depending on what it is, you can do a referral for them, right? Yeah, that's in a good situation. That's in a good situation. When it's not in a good situation and they're being verbally abusive to you, it's like, shields up, shields up, and depending on your comfort level with it, um, you can actually tell them, just because you're feeling angry, don't take it out on me. Just because you're feeling sad and all of that, that's no excuse for being mean to somebody. You can call them on it, depending on how comfortable you are with something like that. Yeah, Madonna is saying, nice to see you. Busy, yes, but my son's health is slowly improving. Yay, yay. Hope to participate more. Aw, that's good. That's good that he's feeling better. I tell you, there's a lot of prayers for that young man. Yeah, that's good that he's feeling better. Mm. Let's talk a little bit about the flip side of that, because we can talk about empaths and sensitives because we really, really get that, right? But if you know of anybody, or maybe it's yourself, oh, really? Oh God. Okay. I'm back. I don't ask me. I don't know. I blipped out. But I'm back. All right. Maybe that was a little segue, a little break in there, a little break in the energy field to allow in the mental aspect. Okay. Because the flip side of being a sensitive or an empath is someone who, let's put it this way, the the opposite of an empath or a sensitive who isn't grounded, who hasn't really taken the time to understand, their gift, and they could be, expressing, emoting a lot, okay, and maybe it's not even, there's not even, they don't know it's not theirs. So the opposite of that is someone um, who lives their life a lot from their intellect, very logical. It could be as an archetype. It could be, Dr. Spock, or what's his name? I mean, I can't think of even the show's name. Let's stick with Spock. Um, is that, the expression of emotion is pretty flat, right? It's not that they don't have emotion, is that they choose to express it through their mental ability, their intelligence, rather than through their emotions, right? And many times they come across very distant and cold. Um, and so many times they're told that they're not enough, that they can't or won't be, they don't relate to people, right? That they don't have enough emotions. Yeah. So we have the two extremes, right? The two extremes. And if you've ever been told that you're not enough, right? That no matter how intelligent you are, it still hurts. that still hurts. They may not be able to express their emotion in the way that a sensitive would, but they still have feelings. They still have emotions. The term I still bleed when I cut. When you cut me, I still bleed, right? It's the same thing. You still hurt me, I still feel it. They might not express it in the way that we think they should, but it's there, right? Years ago, and I'm talking about high school and college days, right? Now here I am, an empath, and I recognized the gift when I was in my 20s. Didn't know what to do with it, but I recognized it. And as a Native American woman, also dealing with prejudice and racism and that sort of thing, right? So, in order to counteract some, not all, but some of the racism and prejudice, I always tried to get my intellect out there first, right? So I am disrupting the stereotype of Native Americans that a racist might have in their head, maybe, or somebody who would only relate to me in that way, in a stereotype. So my intellect got out there first, right? And so I remember when I first read about this, the expression of emotion or the non-expression, I was thinking, wow, they just shot holes full of my for my coping mechanism. It's like, now what do I do with it? And it's a coping mechanism really that doesn't hold a lot of water then, right? It's like a sieve. It's like a sieve. And so it forced me to come to terms with my ability as an empath and how to express that, and literally how to own it, how to embrace it and own it, right? So here we are in this too much, not enough. How do you find balance in that? How do you find balance in that? Do you find balance? Personally, I think that life is much more peaceful and, dare I even say, easy when we're balanced. So how do we strike a balance between our heart and our head? We just talked about this afternoon. And as I was doing the show this afternoon, I thought, oh my goodness, tonight's show is going to be an extension of that. Mm-hmm. When we strike the balance between our emotions, our heart, and our intellect and our thoughts and our logic, what we end up with is expressing ourselves from our high heart, which is all about compassion and empathy. But it also is about the balance of with your intellect, right? Yeah, and the article that I was reading this afternoon is from Psychology Today. It's called Emotional Intelligence, and it says, did you know that there's no real measure for that? EQ, not a standard one anyway. And it says that while some studies have found a link between emotional intelligence and job performance, others have shown no correlation, and the lack of scientifically valid scale makes it difficult to truly measure or predict one's emotional intelligence on the job. It's like, okay, so how do you do this from their standpoint? to find this balance between your head and the heart. And if your mental mind is looking for the logic around it, right? And so this is what I came up with, is that it's kind of going along with what Rob wrote about being a coach. Refereeing sports is an example of doing that. It's kind of like that. Because you have to take in all of the information in your environment, both the seen and unseen, right? So here comes your intellect that can take in all the information from data and magazines and all kinds of written material, and it takes that all in. But you're also taking in the energetics of it. And so in steps your emotional body, right? And so you're taking in all of the information about the emotions in the space or in the situation. And for us, that that all four of our bodies, for it to be balanced, has to be involved. And so now you also want to take in information from the physical sense, right? And that happens a couple different ways. What does it feel like in your body? What does your body feel like? Where do you feel it in your physical body? Right? But it also means that you're also taking in information from the physical space, whether it's a room or whether it is in a conversation, in the document, texts, that kind of stuff. So you're taking in all of it. Now, in order to do that in a way that is going to be very helpful, you have to be grounded and centered, right? So you take in as optimal amount of information. And then you're turning to your spiritual team and asking them to help you to process and discern all of this information that you're taking in. Now, it sounds overwhelming, but we do it all the time. All the time. It's like 150,000 bits of information that come in energetically in all different ways, come into our field per minute. That's a lot. No wonder we go to bed tired, right? That's a lot. 150,000. We're bringing it in. We're taking it. We're reading it. We might not even know that we're doing it. It's done on a subtle level. But we're better at it. We're better at it when we're grounded and we're centered. Yeah. I'm going to catch up with you guys in the chat. Okay? So here. Madonna is saying, when I was a teen, I used to think there was something wrong with me as I cried at a drop of a hat. I remember trying desperately to stay unemotional, even biting my lip or cheek to hold it back. That didn't last long. I couldn't keep it up. Never heard the term empath until much, much later in life. So relieved to know it now. Right. Because that you came in with that gift, right? And at that time, I know when you first realize what, especially when people are telling you that something's wrong with you, it's like, I'm doing the best I can here. And then you even cry about that. But until we realize that, oh, that's what that is, then we have a name for it. And our mental mind goes, oh, we have a name for it? Well, let's look it up. Let's get some information on that. Let's Google it, right? And so then starts the journey, the quest for the information. Andrea says, now I am so glad for my sensitivity and I gain a lot from it and understand and seeing things. But before I understood it, I thought it was a detriment, right? Most of us thought it was a curse at first, right? Yeah, because it upends your life so much. You don't know you don't, when you're an empath or a sensitive person, sometimes you don't know what's yours and what's somebody else's emotions, their feelings. And until you learn how to discern that, to kind of pull it apart and say, okay, which one's mine? Which is someone else's? And what am I supposed to do with this? Someone else's. Let it go. Let it go. Or perhaps when you've learned about how you're supposed to use your gift, maybe you can be helpful and still have boundaries, right? Yeah. Jocelyn said, I knew even at a young age, and back then you were told you have a gift, but don't let people know because they will judge you or call you crazy because they don't understand. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. You know, um, I was so blessed, really, to have the parents that I had because they were okay with us talking about it at the supper table, at the breakfast table. You know, we had a place to actually express it. And I think my mom did that because um, she's clairvoyant, and rarely will she actually ever talk about it or share much about it. She does with me. She does with me, but and she has actually said those words. They'll think I'm crazy. They'll think I'm crazy. Yeah. So here she is, 100 years old, and in the last couple of years, she's been more free about sharing about what she sees. Right. So she spent all of her life, Jocelyn, almost her entire adult life, definitely her childhood. Yeah, hiding it, not talking about it, not telling anybody about it. hmm So that taught me a lot too. It did, and the fact that she encouraged us to talk about the dreams that we had. She encouraged us to talk about the things that we saw or felt or heard. Now, did it go outside the house? Generally not. Generally not. Depending on who we were with, right? Yeah. Some of my friends in high school knew. Yeah, knew, but not many. Not many. Jocelyn said they used to call me a white witch in my teens. Yeah. Yeah. Back then it was like, oh my God, no, I'm not. Don't call me that, right? You get very yeah about it. And today, Jocelyn, capitalize it. Two capital W's. Own it, right? That's a part of you. That's like saying, my hair's black or my eyes are brown. That's a part of you as much as your eye color. hmm And it's okay to express it at home. Yeah, because it's safe. Rob says it used to get used against you in your life because nothing it becomes nothing but pain. It gets used against you and your life becomes nothing but pain, especially as a child. Emotion is not masculine. Yeah, that certainly is true, isn't it, Rob? In our society, for men to show their emotions, especially if you were born before the 80s, yeah, that didn't happen, you know. Um, uh, you know, and how many little boys were called crybaby, right? Or mama's boy, you know? And yet they were those little boys, if they had been encouraged at a young age, right? And we're doing that now. We've learned, enough of us have learned to encourage the men, the boys in our lives, um, to express their emotions in a good way, right? Andre says your mom sounds awesome. She can be. She can be. Um, yeah, she's. She's highly intuitive. And because of where she's at in life, we have a lot of spiritual activity at my house, a lot. And so, you just, I grew up with it. I grew up with it, and so lights flickering and that kind of stuff, and I have protection around the house and all that for her primarily. Um, yeah, so yeah, that's basically how I grew up, though, Andra. I can remember every time I went out. This is what my mom said to me. Um, and she thought it was my her dad, my grandfather, my Misha, is that the rocking chair would rock until I got home. It was like they were waiting. She'll be back. She'll be back. Um, that sort of thing. Yeah. Or hearing the footsteps going down the hallway. Right. Yeah. Normal. Normal stuff. Jocelyn said, I bet you have learned so much from her. I have. I have learned a great deal from her. I got to hear many of those stories that she told me when I was younger and didn't make time to slow down to listen to them. Because, there was she's trying to tell me this stuff when I was a teenager, right? And so sports and boys were much more important. And so I got to hear them again in my 50s and, and to do, maybe even, ask some questions kind of thing. So I'm looking at the time. I wanted to make sure that we just didn't, rehash the good stuff, the information that we talked about, the impounds. But I also wanted to make sure that we covered, you know, those people in our lives um, who live primarily out of their intellect, and yet they can be highly intuitive. Did you ever notice that? Yeah, very intuitive. I live with one too, my husband. It's like, you know, he had quite an awakening when he married me and came into the family. Right? We're talking about spirits and spiritual things happening all the time, and his family never talked about that stuff. So with my husband, he's learned. He's learned because he's clairaudient. He's learned to listen when he's been given information. Um, yeah, because otherwise he gets hurt. The one that sticks in my mind so often is he's a hunter, right? And he went hunting with some very close friends of his, and one of the guys had gotten his, I think it was doe, but I don't remember. Anyway, Paul was going to help with the field dressing and getting it prepared to take to be cut up, right? And he told me later that he had his hand and he was using his knife, right? And he could hear his dad's voice say to him, "Stop, stop, move your hand." And he didn't do it. And he cut himself pretty bad. Okay, so I get a telephone call at home, and it's one of his friend's wives. Sherry calls me and she says, could you come like right away? Paul kind of got hurt, and I think he's going to need to go to the doctor." And I said, "What? Of course." So I jump in the car and I drive over there. They're like 10-15 minutes from me. And I pull up because she told me that they were willing to take him to the ER, but he wouldn't go. So I pull up into their driveway, and he turns around and he kind of hangs his head, a bit. And so I get out of the car and I stood in front of him, and he looked at me and I said, "Get in the car. Get in the car." And so I took him to the ER. He had to have stitches. It's like, So, and that has happened to him on different occasions where he actually hears someone talking to him about it. And in the early days, he never listened to it. And now he listens to it all the time, all the time. And so I think that's a really good way to bring this conversation to a closure is that what we need to do is balance. If you're too much or not enough, is to bring those aspects of yourself together. To bring the mental mind, the intellect, and to bring the emotions, your heart, together, and take in as much information as you possibly can that's optimal for you. And then coming from your high heart, making any decisions or sharing your gifts or anything like that, you come from a place of a balanced place, right? And when you're grounded and balanced, you're taking in so much information in a good way, in a balanced way. So anything that you're meant to be able to take in and use, you are, both in the seen and unseen, right? And then, of course, connecting with your spiritual team, your guides, your angels, your teachers, and asking them how to best utilize that information that you just took in. Where does this fit? How can I use this information in a good way, right? And I know, I make it sound like, oh, just do that and you'll be just fine. Yeah, but it's a place to start. It's a place to start. And the next time somebody tells you or says to you, you're too sensitive, or you're too much this or too much that, or you're not enough, just take it in and see, what does this mean for me now? What does it mean for me now? How does it make me feel? If you still feel hurt, if you still feel angry, if you still feel the inadequacy, then you've got more healing to do. If it's pushing a button or tripping a trigger for you, it's telling you still have some healing to do. And that it's time. It's time because it's come to the surface, right? And you have everything at your fingertips that you need to be able to heal it and to release it. You have to decide to do it, right? To face it. Yeah. And if it doesn't do any of those things, if it doesn't trigger anything, and it doesn't, you can take that as a validation of, oh my goodness, last year I would have been like off the deep end on something like that. And I'm not. That's a time to celebrate. Because Spirit just showed you, you've done good, right? You've done good. You've done a lot of work and look where you're at. Yeah. And when you don't hear it at all anymore, and one day you realize, hey, Aunt so-and-so or Uncle so-and-so are here and they didn't say anything to me about that. Huh. It's no longer in your energy field. It doesn't exist anymore. And it's another time to celebrate. So, we're at the top of the hour, and I wanted to thank you guys for being with me this evening and to be here for this conversation and to add to it. You guys, I learned so much from you too. Every time you guys make a comment and share what's going on with you and what has happened in your life, I've learned from you, and I'm sure that there's others who will be watching this video as a recording, and they'll say, that happened to me too, or that I felt that way too. And then you might give somebody some hope that they can have a more balanced life, right? Yeah. We're just helping each other. We're walking the red road together, right? That's correct. So now, tonight's Tuesday. Tomorrow, if you want to join me for the spiritual roundtable, that's at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And Polly Joe Show, Soul Connections, is on at 7 p.m. And Star Nations magazine, the July issue, is publishing tomorrow. That's what I get to do in the morning. I love publishing day. I do. It's such a good feeling, and I hope you guys enjoy this issue, because I tell you, some of those articles, you can feel the author, the writers sharing their heart with you. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. So I'll tell you more about that in a different, probably a special live stream. I'll share the backstory of this issue with you guys, and yeah, you know how that goes. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening, and we'll see you again soon, okay? Bamamina, that means until we meet again in Potawatomi, all right? Love you guys.